Hey everyone, this is Tom Salemi. Welcome back to the Device Talks weekly podcast. It's great to have you here. We have an all hands on deck situation here today. Our first interview is by Associate Editor Sean Whooley. Sean spoke with the CEO of the newly spun out Embecta. It's being spun out of Becton Dickinson. Sean spoke with CEO Dev Kurdikar and CFO Jake Elguicze about the spin out, about Embecta's plans and its future. So great job by Sean bringing us those thoughts from the leaders of this new company. And then later on, we've got an interesting interview by Jim Hammerand. Jim is the managing editor of our great Medical Design and Outsourcing magazine. On the cover of the most recent issue of Medical Design and Outsourcing, you will see today's guest, Torrey Smith, the CEO and co-founder of Endiatx. Endiatx is developing a fleet of microrobots. Looks a lot like the vessel in Fantastic Voyage, and Endiatx's goal is to create a robot that can essentially do what an endoscope does, that can be swallowed by a patient and that can look around and be controlled by those who have the controllers. Torrey Smith has some interesting ideas as to where this care can be delivered. Obviously, as he notes, we've seen some progress in this area, and Torrey Smith says they're building off of the success of companies like Given and Medtronic. So it's certainly a futuristic tale, but it's one that Endiatx is working to tell. So I hope you will enjoy that conversation. But of course, we're going to kick off this episode with Newmarker's Newsmakers. Chris Newmarker is back, and he and I will review the big news of the week. Before we begin, though, I want to hit a few housekeeping items. First of all, please remember to register for our upcoming in-person meetings. We would love to meet you in person. You have a choice to go to Device Talks Boston on May 10th and 11th at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. You can register for that at devicetalks.com. You can also register for Device Talks Minnesota. That'll take place on June 6th and 7th. When you're registering for one and, I hope, both, use the code DTW25 to save yourself 25% off the cost of registration. Finally, I did want to remind you that Device Talks Tuesday is underway. It's been underway for a couple of weeks now, and it's rolling. On Tuesday at 4 p.m., we'll have a session sponsored by Silicon Labs. It's called Securing Portable Medical Devices, Challenges and Solutions. So if you're building yourself a portable medical device, this is an essential conversation. Go to devicetalks.com to register. You can watch it live or you can watch it on demand. I think that's all the housekeeping for right now. So let's begin this episode of the Device Talks weekly podcast. All right, you ready for this?
Ready.
Oh, one more thing. In a few minutes, I'm going to say a ridiculous number of hours, 5,380 hours. I should have said minutes. I think it'll be clear as the conversation continues. But yeah, I did that. Newmarker, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Happy Friday, man. We're recording this on a Friday today.
That's right. Friday, just before noon here in Boston. It's in the 50s, and the sun is trying to come out. So spring is springing after some real feels in the single digits earlier this week. So enough of that.
Yeah. It's sunny here in the 30s, but at least the snow's pretty much gone. So that's...
Pretty much gone. We don't have to talk about the weather anymore. I think we annoyed people enough with that last time.
Yeah.
So we have a bit of a milestone. It occurred to me this morning, Chris, that I think we're on our 2-year anniversary. We would have launched this podcast March of 2020. I don't have the exact date, but it was definitely the end of March 2020. And wow. So happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Tom.
Yep.
Hey, time flies by when you're having fun.
Exactly. So I did some math. I went through all the past episodes and added up the times. And we have created 5,358 hours of enjoyment for folks.
Wow.
Yeah. Which is nearly 90 hours of fun and excitement.
That is awesome.
It is. And I did some more math because, me and math were like this. Yeah. You could watch in the same amount of time, you would have to watch all of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies.
Wow.
The entire MCU and nearly all of the Star Wars movies to get that amount of quality content. You wouldn't want to watch all of the Star Wars movies. Nearly all the
Star, yeah. I mean, which one would you not watch?
Oh, we tried to watch Attack of the Clones or whatever, the second, and it was just brutal. I love my son dearly, but I was just like, after 20 minutes, I'm sorry. Like, I can't watch this. I just kind of got up and walked away. And he agreed. It's bad. So you can skip you can skip the first 2, quote unquote, the first 2 in my mind.
Are you including like some of the spin-off movies, like that Solo movie? Like,
I'm considering them. I mean, Rogue One was a fantastic movie. I think Rogue One is a top 3 Star Wars movie in my mind.
It was an awesome movie.
That was great. Yeah. Solo was okay. Solo was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, but it's watchable. Some of those others.
It was a good that it was a Ron Howard movie. That's the definition I think of a Ron Howard movie. It was enjoyable. It was an enjoyable movie.
Well, Ron Howard did not to go to. He did The Paper with Michael Keaton. Did you watch The Paper as a young journalist?
Yeah, that's a good journalist movie.
Absolutely, yeah. So Ron Howard makes us some good flicks. So anyway, 90 hours of MedTech enjoyment. Thanks to everyone who's been part of this amazing journey. We have had 96 Device Talks weekly episodes. Or 95.
Well, Tom, here's to hoping we get another 90, at least, here's to another 90 hours
Amen,
of
brother.
enjoyment. That's right.
It should not take us 2 years to do that because I was looking at the times and these episodes certainly are a lot longer than they used to be. The first one we put out was 27 minutes long.
Wow.
The shortest one we ever did was 14 minutes long.
Wow.
Which was just about Medtronic's buying spree. I don't know what possessed me to do a 14-minute. And the longest one was 90 some odd minutes long. Wow. I think that was our Arigato Mr. Roboto episode. So we definitely are going longer than we used to. But I like to think
it's good stuff.
Because it's good stuff. Yeah.
Good stuff.
What are we going to cut out? This banter? This stuff?
Right.
Maybe
we should.
Good point. Good point.
There we go.
All right. So takeaways: Rogue One is a damn good movie,
yes.
And we've produced a lot of content.
Well, there we go. All right. Well, we're done with the episode, Tom.
All right. Nice talking to you, Chris. Have a good weekend. Bye.
You too. Right. Have a Friday.
Was there any news this week, Chris Newmarker? I got a feeling there were probably some top news stories of the week.
There were, and we have a name for those. Those are called the Newmarkers, Newsmakers. So.
That's right. It's been so long. In fact, I want to tell folks that we were going to have a special guest in the booth this week, but Chris and I weren't feeling particularly at our best yesterday. Chris got home late from a very enjoyable vacation, and
first time I had the family in an airplane in years, so it was great.
Wow,
yeah. So it was actually really awesome.
That would contribute to any fatigue that you felt yesterday.
Yes.
And I got my booster on Wednesday, and I felt like crap on Thursday. So it may have been a side effect, or it could have been a bad encounter with dairy.
Or
we'll
both.
See. We'll send the casserole to the lab and see what they say. But regardless, we had to cancel on our special guest, but she will be back next week. So
it'd be cool if you sent it to the lab and you saw them put hazmat suits on before they looked at the casserole. Like it was
delightful. It was a tasty casserole.
What kind was it? A tuna casserole?
No, it was a Mexican casserole with cornbread stuffing.
That sounds great.
It was delicious. Maybe that was the problem.
When I was growing up, my mom would make tuna casserole. Sometimes it was just like, it's just like just not my top meal of the week. Like, cube steak. I'm not going to rag on cube steak. It was all right. It was
number 5 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers.
Yeah, let's move on here. Okay, number 5. Number 5 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers. We've got the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency issuing a notice, about potential cybersecurity issues with Philips eAlert MRI. monitoring, system, and just, saying that, it's a potential vulnerability related to missing authentication for critical function. But I mean, it's just basically like, just pointing out, this has been kind of like an ongoing, trend that we've been covering, is that, it seems our industry, like they're pointing, there's definitely cybersecurity is an issue that companies are still working through. And, and definitely a very, a very serious issue, because we don't want to have any ransomware, associated with our medical devices.
Well, in particular, with all that's going on in Ukraine and the invasion by Russia, certainly, I think all of our guards are up and should be for some sort of attacks. I did note at the end of the article, which was written by Sean Whooley, of course. A Philips spokesman told Mass Device that the company had received no reports of exploitation, and as its e-alert hardware is not a medical device, there is no risk to patient safety. So I think it's important to point that out.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I'd also like to point out that the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency might need a nickname. I don't know. Just it's a lot. I know.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Maybe Shield or something cool. Something.
Oh yeah, Shield. That sounds good. Yeah.
That would be epic. All right. Number 4 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers.
Number 4, Shield. Oh my gosh. I'm surprised you didn't measure the length of all our podcasts by Marvel movies. Like, you watched the entire Avengers franchise.
I was going to break it down by phases of the MCU, but I just combined all the phases together.
Number 4 on the list, we've got Biobeat receiving FDA clearance for its wearable remote patient monitoring device. Monitors respiratory rate, body temperature, and it's in addition to cuffless blood pressure, blood oxygen saturation, and pulse rates. Just these wearables and all kinds of these monitoring devices that are FDA regulated. This is just another hot space, and another device there that's now been cleared and for the market.
Fantastic. And I'm looking it up right now. Our longest podcast is still shorter than Ant-Man in runtime and Doctor Strange, which I think are probably 2 of the shorter ones. So I don't think we're not quite at Marvel movie length yet, but we'll work on it.
Yeah.
So very cool stuff about Biobeat. And this is something that we're going to continue to talk about at our upcoming meetings, just the growth and the power of wearables. So important stuff to keep tracking. And it's interesting that it's making the top 5 list. I guess there's obviously a lot of interest as
a lot of times
I said.
we mainly pick these Newmarkers Newsmakers based on what stories have been getting the most page views over the past week, and this has had hundreds of people read this article. So it's definitely something that's getting some attention. So very cool.
Very cool indeed. All right, move on to number 3 on the Newmarkers Newsmakers.
Oh, number 3 is another, hot space, which has been there's a lot of neat stuff going on right now with, contact lenses and, ophthalmological products. And, we got some more news in that area. We got Staar Surgical receiving, FDA approval for its, Evo Plus. Let me see if I can pronounce that right. Visian implantable Collamer lens. It's biocompatible implantable lenses for correction of myopia and myopia with astigmatism. So just another these lenses, these Evo lenses implanted within the posterior chamber of the eye, directly behind the iris and in front of the natural crystalline lens. Just another another neat product in this ophthalmological space that we've been seeing a lot of news around lately.
Absolutely. And this is an alternative to LASIK, which is something I'm all for. I've never been quite comfortable with the lasers in the eye thing.
Yeah.
Although thousands, if not millions of people have done it.
Tons
and they're
of people
fine.
have done it. Yeah, exactly.
Personally, myself, just not something I want to do, but this is something I would consider. I would prefer to treat presbyopia. I think I'd like to get rid of my presbyopia. I'm fine with my myopia. I've always been comfortable with my myopia, but don't like these progressive lenses, my friend. Reading stuff up close.
Yep, I'm slowly moving through reading glasses right now. So
yep, come this way, Chris Newmarker.
I think just today I was reading something to somebody over the phone and realized my reading glasses weren't up to snuff. I might have to get a new higher magnification. So.
Or a longer arm. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Number two. Yeah, I know. On the Newmarkers Newsmakers.
Number two. It's interesting doing this in the morning because we're definitely a little more mellow. It's like
a little more mellow, a little punchy,
yeah. So different energy level.
We don't sound quite as defeated as we normally do, so it's great.
Well, Tom, let's talk.
Why even bother with number two, Chris?
Who cares? No, Number two on the list, we've got a BD completing the spinoff of their Embecta diabetes company. So, we've been seeing a lot of, like a few years ago, it was all about acquisitions, bigger companies. And now, like, we're seeing like spinoff. They're, like it seems that we're in a spinoff cycle right now. I mean, I spoke to the CEO of ZimVie, a few weeks ago after they spun out of Zimmer Biomet, and actually, I was talking to our associate editor Sean Whooley this morning, and he was making arrangements to talk to the leadership of this new Embecta spinoff. So that should be a neat story when it comes through. Interesting. It should be. It's. Oh yes, and do you want to? It looks like we have Sean. Sean got what the name of this company means. That's always fun. Refers to the empathy for those leading with diabetes, while the BECT is a nod to Becton Dickinson. So, they didn't just use the random company names generator to figure out how to name this company. It actually empathy, a little nod to it being part of BD in the past.
All right, so like ZimVie has the Zim in there, and Embecta has the Beck in there.
Dickinson. There you go.
Okay,
so.
All right, we'll take a quick break from Newmarkers Newsmakers to bring you the interview that I promised. Sean Whooley, Associate Editor of Mass Device, asks Embecta's CEO, Dev Kurdikar, about the company's plans and capabilities following the spin-out. Let's listen.
Embecta is the largest diabetes injection devices producer in the world. We did last year about $1.2 billion in revenue. Our products are available in 100 countries. We estimate 30 million people use our product annually. We make 8 billion devices approximately a year in 3 highly automated plants in China, 1 in Ireland, 1 in the United States. And we are the leader in pen needles in virtually every region of the world that we are present in. We have slightly over 2,000 employees on day one, 600 or so commercially focused employees, half of them in emerging markets, which is a spot of strength for us. Our mission is to develop and provide solutions for people with diabetes. We'll continue to be headquartered in the New Jersey area, not in BD's offices. We will move out of BD's offices and have our own facility. And I don't want to I want to make sure, Sean, I comment on the fact that while we might be a newly listed company today, we have a 98-year history of being in this business. Insulin itself has been used to treat diabetes since 1922. And just 2 years after that, we introduced the first specialized syringe for the delivery of insulin. And we've been making injection devices for insulin ever since.
Mm. Yeah, that's definitely something I wanted to touch on was this obviously isn't a new space, and obviously this isn't, a startup. This is a spin-off. And is there any sort of bedding in period for the company as far as, having to – I know I was talking with a colleague because I myself am not too well versed in spin-offs, but he was telling me that a lot of spin-offs, a lot of it starts with paying off debt. Are there things that you have to really set up, or because so much has already been put in place just through the fact that this diabetes business has been around for a while, is it business, almost business as usual?
Yeah, so let me comment on the second part of the question first, Sean. Then I'm going to invite my colleague Jake to talk a little bit about the financial flexibility that we certainly think we have right from day one. But with respect to the second part of your question, diabetes care business, as a division of BD, had people that were focused on R&D for diabetes. Our manufacturing plants were largely segregated. And the commercial folks that I talked about, the 600 commercially focused employees, they were all focused on diabetes. So we are fortunate on day one itself to have people that were already dedicated to the diabetes care business now become part of Embecta. The parts that we have to build as we build out our standalone company that is not, unexpected would be more in the corporate functions, corporate finance, IR, treasury, corporate HR, and so on and so forth. So, we start off on day one with a fairly focused and dedicated team that is familiar with R&D, manufacturing, and certainly, we managed to keep the long-standing relationships we have with our customers all over the world. With respect to your first question, I'm going to invite my colleague Jake to take that.
Yeah, thanks, Devin and Sean. Again, good morning. It's nice to talk to you. So look, I came for the spin. I was not necessarily a legacy BD diabetes care employee, but I joined actually the day they announced the spin last May. So I've been here for a little over 11 months, and candidly, I think that Embecta is pretty uniquely positioned. We have scale at about 1.2 billion in revenue. Certainly to be relevant to our customers. Whether it's the pharmacy channel, retailers, whatnot, globally. We have very, very good geographic reach. About half of our revenue comes from the U.S., about a third from Europe, and then the remainder is sort of split 15% or so in Asia and about 5% in Latin America. So good geographic reach. We're not tied to any one particular product. And obviously a lot of our products are they're not easily postponed, right? Individuals need to have our products to get insulin injected into their body to deal with their diabetes. So we're not tied to an elective procedure or capital equipment either. It's a very stable, I would say, recurring revenue stream. Now, obviously we have a established distribution network and commercial infrastructure and manufacturing footprint, all of which is coming with the deal. And our business today is a very, very highly profitable and cash generative business. And I think out of the gate, we are going to have the financial flexibility. And as we thought about our capital structure, a mixture of payable debt, but then also some fixed rate capital that is termed out. So we don't necessarily have any near-term maturities, but we certainly have the ability, if we so choose, to pay down debt. Obviously we intend, the strategy for Embecta is really going to be focused around growth, and it's going to be an invest for growth story, and we're certainly committed to making the investments organically necessary to try and increase R&D and really create a company that is able to drive sustainable, increased, constant currency revenue growth rates going forward. And we have, a product, underway. It's an insulin patch pump that I'm sure Dev can talk to you more about. That could be a significant, growth driver for us in the future. And we have some other products under development already, as well. But I think our capital structure right out of the gate is going to allow us that flexibility to both make those internal organic investments, as well as, we would, to the extent that M&A becomes available and or partnership opportunities, certainly would look to do things in that area as well. And I think, again, our capital structure really allows that nice mix of flexibility for us to do all of those things. Glad
you mentioned the patch pump because I wanted to learn more about just what your product portfolio looks like now. You've already established yourself as far as injection devices and things like that. So, what are sort of the lead products? Are there things like the patch pump you mentioned in development that you can go into detail on? And what kind of, I guess, spaces are you looking to move into within diabetes, if any?
Right. The space that we are currently in, insulin administration, right, broadly gets categorized as injection devices, which, we are certainly a leader in, and then delivery of insulin by infusion pumps. That's an area that's of tremendous opportunity for us. We are developing a patch pump. We are targeting the development to make it suitable for type 2. As you may know, so the currently available pumps were designed for type 1. People with type 1 diabetes, we are designing it for type 2, and there are some differences between the user needs and preferences if you're type 2 versus if you're type 1. We have a breakthrough device designation from the FDA on the product, which we've found to be tremendously helpful in working with the FDA to understand some of the key regulatory requirements and understand them while we are in the midst of development. So we know the work that we are doing is aligned with our understanding of what they'll be looking for. And so that's an exciting opportunity for us. From an M&A and partnership standpoint, there are other technologies that are being developed out there. Smart pens are being developed. Healthcare, IT type of ecosystems are being developed. Those are areas that we will look at, all with the intent of how do we sort of widen our product portfolio while making sure that we have a suite of market appropriate products, because the needs and affordability concerns in emerging markets are going to be very different than they are in developed markets. And we want to have a suite of products that we can use and really leverage the strength that we have in both developed and emerging markets. So R&D, M&A, partnerships, we'll all look to add products. We'll largely, at least initially, stay focused in insulin administration and, if you will, affiliated spaces.
Great, thank you. And it's interesting. With this patch pump, for instance, there are obviously competitors, as there is with basically anything. So how do you, because as you described it, this is sort of a unique situation. Embecta is a unique company as far as being new, but not really being new. How do you plan to compete with companies that may already be sort of established in that range, beyond the fact that you say the pump is designed for, most pumps are designed for type 1, and you can sort of figure out new things there. But just how do you plan to compete, I guess, is the general question.
Yeah, so besides the fact that we are actually designing and developing the pump specifically type 2, and there are some notable differences, as I mentioned, between type 2 needs and type 1 needs. One example I'll give you is that the typical type 2 person with diabetes uses more insulin a day on average than a typical type 1. And we are designing the pump to hold more insulin than the currently available patch pump. That's an example of a distinguishing feature. But putting aside distinguishing features, the three other things that come to my mind are the type 2 space is large, it's growing, it's underpenetrated, right? Pump penetration, we estimate, is in the single-digit range in the type 2 population. And there are only a handful of players, especially if you contrast it with how big that patient population is. The second thing is, we already have an existing pharmacy channel, right? Our products are sold through pharmacies in many parts of the world, certainly in the U.S. So we have relationships with retail pharmacists. We contract with payers. So some of the channel strength that you need to be able to successfully commercialize a patch pump, we already have. The third thing is potential users of our patch pump may already be using our product today. So if you are a type 2 person who's injecting yourself, it is possible that you go to the pharmacy and buy our products today, and you have a box of products in our home. So that gives us a unique opportunity to reach these people and educate them on our pump when available. For those three reasons, and then you add on to that the unique features that we are designing into the pump, gives us confidence that we will be able to make and find our own space in the type 2 market.
Awesome. And, obviously there's so much that goes into these things that I can't even begin to comprehend. But I guess, to almost summarize, if you could, in the simplest of ways, why spin off now? Why was this decision made? What is the overall, sort of reason behind it, and the benefits that we may see, whether soon or down the line? Why now?
The decision to spin off was communicated, Sean, May of last year. Right? It takes some time to actually execute the spin. We were carving out a company that has been part of BD for almost 98 years and standing it up as its own public company. Why spin? This spin is consistent with the BD 2025 strategy. For us at Embecta, we look at this and say, as we mentioned before, that diabetes is a large growing market with unmet need. This is a business that has strength. Revenue is strong, stable. We are a profitable business. With spin comes, though, the strategic, operational, and financial flexibility to grow the business, right? We have our own capital structure. We can take our own profits and invest them back into our business. And we are able, frankly, to attract talent as an independent public company of people focused on creating solutions for people with diabetes. I spoke about M&A and partnerships before. We become a more attractive partner as an independent company because now you are working with a company that's focused on this space. So we see a lot of benefits of being our own independent company and a chance to really, further or make progress in our vision of a life unlimited by diabetes, and having the financial flexibility, the talent, the ability to make decisions faster, that's far more enhanced with the spin.
Great. I really appreciate you taking time out of an obviously busy, but as you said, a pretty exciting time. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the great news.
Thank you, Sean, for your time, and I hope we get a chance to speak to you again so we can update you on the progress that we've made since we last spoke.
All right, Chris Newmarker, that sounds great. Well, now, what is number one, the big number one on the Newmarker's Newsmakers list?
Number one on the list is that Owens Minor completed its $1.6 billion acquisition of Apria. This is Apria is a developer of home medical equipment for respiratory therapy, sleep apnea treatment, negative pressure wound therapy, and continuous glucose monitoring. So so we're not done with the big acquisitions, and this definitely expands Owens and Minor's offerings. I mean, they're kind of saying this will help them create a company that has a really broad portfolio of complementary products for people with both chronic and non-chronic conditions. So yeah, just expanding Owens and Minor's reach.
Yeah, no, and this is certainly a zig to the zag of item 2, right? When we were talking about spinouts.
There you go, right? I mean, we're seeing all these spinouts, but we're still seeing multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. So it's all going on.
But this is home healthcare, so obviously a lot of move there. Respiratory, a lot of move there. So yeah, big move for Owens and Minor. Thanks for putting that together.
I try.
You try and you succeed, Chris Newmarker. Now let's hear from Jim Hammerand and his interview with Torrey Smith, the CEO and co-founder of Endiatx.
I'm here with Torrey Smith. He's the co-founder and CEO of Endiatx, a Bay Area startup that's developed an inexpensive, swallowable pill cam that can swim around inside your stomach to have a look, much like you would with an endoscope. It's the start of what Smith hopes will come to be known as hardcore telemedicine. And he knows Pillbot can swim and see because he and his team have swallowed about 20 of them. So, Torrey, what's special about your Pillbot, and what's the market you're chasing with this first iteration?
Sure. Well, I think what's special is basically that Pillbot can move under its own power, and Pillbot can move under its own power outside of the confines of, say, like a big magnetic piece of capital equipment. There's awesome work being done right now with sort of like the little brother of an MRI machine, where you can induce motion in tiny objects. And that's very cool. But what we want to do is cut the cord on the hospital visit itself. We want to dematerialize, a patient's journey through the healthcare system, which is usually 3, 4, 5, 6 trips to the hospital before you get an upper endoscopy. Let's just take that 10 minutes of actual scope time and put it at the beginning of the process, right? So if our vision is robot surgeons, in your brain finding and killing cancer while you're at Disneyland, our reality and our boots on the ground vision is there's about a $2.25 billion market in the stomach every year for endoscopy devices, or put another way, in the US healthcare system, there's about 6 to 8 million upper endoscopies per year. And for that patient population, we are trying with our minimum viable product, with our MVP, we're trying to create a cheap mass market screening tool that might be able to address, say, 25 to 50% of those patients.
And where are you sourcing the parts? It sounds like it's somewhere around $20, $30 worth of parts that you're able to pull together for each of these little pills.
Sure. Our system right now consists of the robot itself, which is about $35 of off-the-shelf parts. And then we do have a little USB dongle right now, which communicates to the robot at low frequency radio. I think that's probably about $10. So right now we're probably $45. Our goal, therefore, is to say hit $25 in volume for the system from a cost of goods sold perspective, because that way, if we're able to plug into the healthcare codes, the reimbursement codes for pill cameras, I see an opportunity to really cut the patient costs. Our stated goal is to cut the patient costs by an order of magnitude. And you can hold me to that, right? Do we achieve it? Do we fall short of it? Or are we evil overlords harvesting, human sickness for ill gains? Those numbers should be apparent, right? But drastically increase access by lowering costs and the hurdles. But as far as the materials and the bill of materials go, we are a scrappy startup and we have to leverage commodity tech as much as possible. So the motors that spin our propellers, we use 4 of those. Those come from the world of cell phone vibrators. My co-founder, James, just has a fancy fixture to take the weights off, and we put our little tiny 3D printed fiberglass propellers on there. The camera up front is an OmniVision camera that is from an old iPhone, the forward-facing selfie cam. And the reason we went with OmniVision is that those folks are down in the San Jose, Santa Clara area, and with their campus physically near, we can go invade their campus and get caught by security to get rapid technical support. We found that works a little bit faster than if you send an email in. And so just throughout the device, you see us trying to take devices that or components and chips that can be tuned to our purpose. We use an FPGA, which is off the shelf, to crunch the stream of data coming out of the camera and turn that into bitmap images. FPGAs are kind of hard to code, and so we're working hard to find a software engineer who can help us do JPEG compression on that FPGA. We use a CC1310, which is a microcontroller and radio combination, to actually form our data link and handle some of the other onboard processes. But the bottom line is, I felt it was important for us to be able to cobble together a minimum viable product with as many off-the-shelf components as possible, just because if I came to you and I said, I think I can make us a moving eyeball in the stomach, but here I need $35 million to get started, we might not be having this conversation today. But by virtue of being scrappy, I can say, hey, our flex circuit has a few more boards on it than we'd like, but it does fit into a swallowable package. And we've burned about $1.1 million to date to go from a napkin sketch to to something that's starting to look like a clinically relevant product, now we're talking. That'll get you in the door with investors. It doesn't necessarily close investor money, but where we are right now is definitely getting those meetings, and we are slowly starting to get the commitments we need.
Could you compare the process using your PillBot to more traditional endoscopy and how the two compare and where you think you've got a real winner here?
Sure. I'm just going to tell you the story of my friend. I don't want to say her real name. I've been using Jackie on my slide deck. So Jackie's story, unfortunately, is relatively typical. She had terrible belly pain. She wasn't sure where it was coming from. It was kind of diffuse. So she started seeing her primary care physician, and she had decent health coverage, not the best, not the worst. She got referred to different doctors. They would have her try a different diet. They would have her try like a drug regimen. And, over the course of a year, she ended up going to the hospital more than 6 times in multiple months. It was almost a year long. And her symptoms actually got worse during this time. Finally, at the end of her experience, she finally qualifies for the upper endoscopy. And so for your upper endoscopy, you're going to have to skip meals, hopefully not do a prep if it's upper, but skip your meals. You go in, you get a central line put into you, you get sedated. They roll you into a room, knocked out. And then the doctor, slides a tube down, either up your nose and down your throat to basically have a look around. And within 10 minutes, the gastroenterologist was able to say, oh, yeah, you have gastritis. I know exactly what drug, and that cured the problem. So the question is, for the upper endoscopy patients of the world, for people who have GI tract issues, do we need to make you go through this arduous year of gatekeeping and expose you to some of the hazards and risks associated with reusing endoscopes or, just sliding and jamming a tube into your body? Or can we just take that 10 minutes and kind of teleport it to the beginning of the cycle by virtue of having this cheap mass market screening tool, right? So that the cheap mass market screening tool for a substantial part of the upper endoscopy patient population is the very first push for us.
And what's your plan to get PillBot to market?
Well, basically just prove to FDA 3 things. To get to market, we need to bring 3 critical items into alignment. The first and most critical one, obviously, is safety. The second is efficacy. This thing needs to do a job as well as an endoscope. And then the final thing is for the appropriate indication for use, right? So if I was trying to do crazy frontier end work or go straight into surgery, that safety, efficacy, indication triad would be very difficult. But if I'm looking to diagnose gastritis or a ulcer in your stomach, or maybe a buildup of weird vascular tissue in the stomach lining, which you can see visually, maybe a little stomach bleed, any of those indications are reasonable targets for this minimum viable product. So I like to tell people that we're just trying to build a moving eyeball in the stomach. We right now have a tech demonstrator that we test on our own bodies, and we were fortunate enough to take to Mayo Clinic under Dr. Kumbari and do a cadaver study recently. And what we're doing right now with the money that we're raising is turning this tech demonstrator, which is deliciously imperfect in every way, right? I would say it's a 5 to 10% perfect device right now. Sometimes you get a moment where you see into the future and you realize we're onto something, right? What we need to do over the next few months is turn this into a real MVP. I need the thing to pair reliably. I need a video signal that's a little bit better on the digital side, but then a lot better on the optics side. Let's get some lenses, some fisheye lens, some filters in there to cut some of the haze. Once we have the MVP functional and we've proven it in limited clinical trials, say 5, 10, 15, maybe maximum 20, 25 patients, right? Just under IRB, like institutional review board trials. Once we've proven that it works at a basic level with a small handful of patients, that's when we raise our Series A and go through FDA on what we think is a 510K predicate-based pathway. And we are really standing on the shoulders of giants here, right? First of all, more than anything, we're standing on the shoulders of given imaging coming out of Israel in the late 90s. 1997 was the first swallow of PillCam, the pill camera. 2001, it gets FDA approval. So we have 25 years of experience swallowing pill cameras. Secondly, Medtronic, who currently own the product line, Medtronic currently owned the PillCam product line, Jeff Martha, who runs Medtronic, has partnered with Amazon to get pill cameras into the patient's home so that people can actually swallow the pill without having to go to the hospital. And so Jeff actually has set up a deal with Amazon where Amazon covers the physical shipping, and then Amazon Web Services handles all the data through their cloud. It's kind of a brilliant thing. And Jeff is really pioneering a new standard of care with the use of the passive pill camera platform. And then the third thing is Anx Robotics, or ANX Robotics, out of China, has recently received FDA approval for the NaviCam magnetically actuated pill, which is awesome. They just got approval for use in the human stomach. And so the patient lies on a gurney, essentially, and is under this big magnetic machine that can induce motion in the pill camera platform. And these folks are amazing. And basically, more than 90% of patients who've received the NaviCam diagnostic prefer it over the actual endoscopy. They say, if you can get the job done with a little eyeball that moves around in my stomach, I would really prefer that to getting sedated and waking up later and you telling me what you found in my passed out body. And so those three predicates, I think, set the stage for us to have little swimming robot pills in the human stomach and decouple it from the hospital. That's really the key for us, is call it hardcore telemedicine, but from a patient perspective, please, let's call it cheap robot pills.
And after PillBot, it looks like you trademarked around the same time Pill Surgeon. You talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what are we here to do as a founding team? Right. We're here to realize our science fiction dreams. Right. I was raised on all the right sci-fi, and so I don't feel like Endiatx is a brilliant idea. I feel like Endiatx is just an obvious idea, and we're hunting for brilliant people to help us make it real. So obviously, where we need to go with this is, let's have rice grain sized nuclear powered brain surgeons operating in swarms, finding and killing cancer, right? It's so satisfying as an aerospace engineer who was trained to make weapons to use that same training and that same kind of sinister enthusiasm. But in this case, we're just directly targeting cancer, right? I want to build technology that looks like an attack submarine or like the guidance package on an air-to-air missile. But instead of shooting this at a person, we're going to very thoughtfully send it through a person and go find cancer where cancer lives and kill it, right? This is exciting. But let's step back through the phases, right? If the goal is a rice grain sized nuclear powered, attack bot, well, first of all, it's probably going to need to be bigger to be realistic, right? So Pill Surgeon is, this scary horse pill, kind of like what I'm holding in my hand with PillBot, but it just has a couple of tools that can fold out and go do a job, right? We'll probably start the Pill Surgeon adventure with, a tissue sampler, right? Just have a little needle on center line, spin the thing, maybe excise a little bit of tissue, pull it in, seal it off, and then we'll go get it later, which is not trivial. We could have a whole conversation about how we get that later, right? The fun thing, though, is right now our camera is on device centerline, right? So if I want a device centerline for a tool, I would put the camera off to the side. And if we're going to do that, we might as well populate another camera on the opposite side, because now we've got stereo vision, right? Now we can have two live video streams, feed that into an Oculus headset. And when that doctor puts the Oculus on, they will suddenly be immersed in a three-dimensional live view of a giant stomach. And wherever they turn their head, the robot's propulsion system and the closed-loop guidance system will turn the robot to simply be the doctor's head at that small scale. And furthermore, say you were in a room with that patient and you were willing to put on some augmented reality goggles. Why not have a hologram pop up inside the patient and in real time see a glowing hologram of their anatomy with the robot blinking away? I mean, this is so cool. We're having so much fun with this.
And when we started talking, you mentioned the concept of hardcore telemedicine. And when I first came to know you, I thought the idea of it being hardcore telemedicine was because you were swallowing your own devices, but that's not really what it's about. It's more than that. And everything that you've been talking about so far, probably it'd be a good idea to talk a little bit about What is hardcore telemedicine? What is it you're trying to do with this rallying cry?
Yeah, well, I would say that hardcore telemedicine really starts with Dr. Fred Moll, right? If you look at what Dr. Moll did with Intuitive Surgical and then Auris Health, he worked with SRI and created the first robotic surgery platform to really hit prime time. And the idea that a doctor on one side of the planet could do surgery on a patient on the other side of the planet was kind of a big deal, right? Because now you're decoupling all of that training, that lifetime of training to create that surgeon. And you're decoupling that mind from the body of the patient who could be anywhere on the planet, right? So with Endiatx, I think we're trying to take some of that inspiration and ask ourselves, what's the next step? And so I think for us, hardcore telemedicine is taking this, robotic surgery and decoupling that from the hospital itself. Right. I would like a typical patient to be in their living room, right? Maybe even lying in bed, just like at peace. I know when I swallow these and my chairman, Alex, is driving them around my stomach, he's always saying, Torrey, shut up, stop moving around, give the robot a chance to do its job. So maybe the patient's on their couch or in their bed. But to take you to the present day and some of the challenges we're working on right now, like the robot I'm holding in my left hand, you'll notice is a little bit longer and slightly fatter than the one in my right hand. And we don't need to talk about what color it's stained. But this guy, we made a little bit bigger to get a little bit better buoyancy. This imperfect robot that I swallowed a few days ago uploaded 375 megabytes while we were controlling it with Xbox controllers. And so we're on the verge of creating these epic data sets that I just can't wait to work with leading data scientists, because I think what this hardcore telemedicine really means is all of the data from every patient before you being run through an AI and bringing the latest and greatest standard of care to a patient outside of a hospital setting and cheap. This can be dirt cheap, right? That, the robots don't have to cost that much. I want a healthcare provider to get their patients treated for way less. I want a doctor to make way more money because, look, you don't have to be gowned up in a laboratory setting with a knocked out patient rolling in on a cart. You only get to treat so many patients per hour that way. You could be in Cancun swiping on your iPhone, only you're swiping cancer with these little robots. So I think the goal is let's decouple patients from hospitals where possible. And although we're quite humble right now, we recently, we're working a buoyancy issue. I mentioned we made the thing a little bit longer so it would float a little bit more nicely. Recently, I invited the crew to get in the cockpit of a Cessna 310, and we clawed our way up over Watsonville, California with the robot in a fish tank. And we asked the pilot to just do like a hard pushover and point the nose at the ground for a little bit. And briefly, we were weightless. And for a few seconds, we were able to look into the future where buoyancy is no longer a concern for us, right? One of many things we're pushing through. And as we were falling out of the sky, it occurred to me that any one of us could be giving any other one of us an upper endoscopy in the cockpit of an airplane falling out of the sky. And it just makes me think, the future is really bright for patients all over the world, astronauts going into orbit and beyond, right? Like, let's please make tiny robots and use them for medicine. It's a lot of fun. And I think it can be good for just about everyone.
Now, is this the point at when your pitch meetings at which you say potential investors sometimes kind of start laughing at you? And I want to ask you, why should people take you and your team seriously?
This is funny. We just got passed on by the front man from the rock band Muse. He looked me up on LinkedIn and he's like, your robots look cool, and he's associated with a cool VC, Helium 3 Ventures. They're really good people, right? And so we got into a meeting and we got Dr. Kambari from Mayo Clinic. We got Dr. Elguicze from the Alphabet X world. And then myself in my living room, and I started showing them robots and the videos and the sketches. And like the hundreds of VCs who have turned us down already, and thank goodness there's a handful that have said yes. But for the hundreds that say no, they all say the same thing. They say, this is really cool. We really like your team. We love the vision, but we feel like you're maybe a little bit too early for us, which is very appropriate. Venture capitalists have a very difficult job, which is they need to say no to 99% of the awesome ideas that make it through the funnel to their desk. Right? So if you're a VC, every single day, you're basically seeing the coolest stuff ever and then having to say no. That's a difficult job right there. And honestly, we're just glad because although they passed on us today, they said, we want to be a part of the story. We need to see the updates. We want to see the videos. We're living in interesting times, right? When we look at what happened with Theranos was such a beautiful vision, right? A beautiful and wonderful vision with very passionate people behind it. But the industry expects a lot, right? I get asked every day to oversell Endiatx. I just won't do it because in the end, Theranos was able to raise $945 million on some untruths, and then eventually those cascaded into straight up lies, right? And I'm holding human lives in trust with this technology, right? When our devices work great, people's lives will be saved. When we fail to do our job and when we screw up, people will die, right? This is life and death. We take this very seriously, right? This is why we put these in our own bodies first, right? I haven't done any animals because I can learn more in my own stomach than I can in a pig. And I don't need a pig to die today, right? Perhaps eventually we get to that point, but I actually see a potential to maybe avoid animal studies if possible. We've burned $1.1 million to go from a notebook sketch to the janky robots we show off every day. And, we're looking to meet the team of venture capitalists that sees that team and sees that level of commitment and says, yeah, I want to be a part of that adventure and we can put our money where our mouth is. I mean, I put my robot where my mouth is.
Tell me a little bit more about the team. Can you run through the co-founders and other notables who are making this happen?
Sure. So I did 12 years of hard time in the med device startup scene before this. I was part of 3 exits. I'm a good mechanical designer. That's what I would call myself. Dr. Elguicze, or Alex Maverick, as we call him colloquially. Alex is, he has a doctorate in aerospace engineering and has been running high-level tech at X and other places for many years. He's put satellites into orbit, been all over the world, manages our deep tech stack. I think the superstar of Endiatx is probably James Erd. James and I are best friends. The 3 of us met building giant Tesla coils out in the desert at Burning Man. James is a machinist. He's now our co-founder and principal R&D engineer, but James collects machine tools. And in our warehouse, we're up to about 60,000 pounds of cast iron. We make our own robots, right? We collect the machines. A lot of our machines came from SRI, actually, where the Da Vinci surgical robot was first prototyped. We just pick up the castaways, the things that people can't use anymore, and slowly amass the tools you need to build crazy robots. So on the engineering side, we're pretty strong with hardware, mechanical hardware, and really looking hard to get that next brilliant electrical, computer, and software engineer onto the team. I'd like to think that we've built robotic hardware now that's worthy of the world's best software. I think that's where the moment we are in time right now. On the medical side, we have 3 people that have really gone above and beyond and put their own careers and their own names on the line to be associated with Endiatx. So right at the top of our team would be Dr. Vivek Kumbhari. He's a PhD and an MD. He runs gastroenterology at Mayo Clinic. 5 minutes into the cell phone call with him, he said, I have to be a part of this. This concept of tiny robots operating independently inside the human body is what we all know the future is. And you guys are the first company that's just going straight for it, right? That meant a lot to us, but we would never have met Dr. Kumbhari if it wasn't for Dr. Boo Hussein Hay, who holds a similar position at King's College London. If Mayo is number 1 in the world in gastroenterology, then King's College London is number 3. Who's number 2? Johns Hopkins. That's where Dr. Kumbhari came from before he went to lead GI at Mayo. Dr. Hay has been a proponent of us for a long time. He was willing to go into his Rolodex, so to speak, and introduce us to the real movers and shakers that are his peers. And then the first doctor who really put their time into Endiatx, Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Bonas. He's an MD. He's an ER doc at a Kaiser Oakland, flight surgeon with the 144th. As an ER doc, he's our gateway to all of the fields of medicine because we feel like this platform we're creating is going to be relevant outside of the world of gastroenterology, right? I want brain surgery. I want emergency medicine. I want GI. Honestly, I spent 9 years of my life designing the Phoenix atherectomy system to remove plaque from arteries. Obviously, we want to go into the vascular system. We want to make weird robots that crawl through all of the areas of the body and do stuff. And then Ben also holds the interesting title as my older brother. And sometimes we'll get a text in the brother's text thread that'll say something like, "Look up jackass," and he'll be roaring overhead in F-15. And it's just kind of cool to have a team as eclectic as this, because while everyone comes from a different walk of life, I was born in a dirt floor cabin that my dad built out in the mountains, so I have an interesting perspective from that. Everyone's coming at it from a different perspective, but we all share this passion of, can we measurably improve people's lives? And can we please play with tiny robots? Because the combination is really fun.
Well, I can't wait to see how it turns out. So thanks for speaking with me, Torrey. Podcast listeners can find more online at medicaldesignandoutsourcing.com and in the March edition of MDO Magazine. So, Torrey, what have you learned through all of this, and what kind of advice would you have for startup founders of their own?
Very simple. And I would say, first of all, stealth mode is for cowards. Publicly declare what you want to do when you have zero traction and zero funding, and see if you as a founder can infect other people with your vision and begin to build a team and make progress and build traction faster than anyone can compete with you. Because that founding team is worthy of investment. You don't need to build this thing in stealth. If you have to build it in stealth to have a shot, maybe you're not strong enough.
All right, well, that is a wrap. Chris Newmarker, let's do the social media thing. Where can folks find you out there in social media?
Hey, you can find me on LinkedIn, Chris Newmarker, just like a new marker. And you can find me on Twitter at Newmarker. Always happy to chat.
I am on Twitter at MedTechTom, and I am on LinkedIn, Tom, Salemi. Please do, what do we want them to do, Chris?
Want to like, follow, subscribe.
That's right. This is Chris Newmarker actually saying that. Jim Hammerand thought it was a sound effect. Nope, that's Chris Newmarker with his pitch perfect delivery of like, follow, subscribe every single time.
That's right. I think it's the same.
He's a professional. He knows what he's doing.
You don't have a like, follow, subscribe button.
I do not. No. This is 100% organic. Like, follow, subscribe. Please do all of those.
I didn't do the Godzilla yell in the past. I didn't do that.
That is not you.
I was like,
I ripped that off the internet like a good podcaster. Yeah. So please do like, follow, and subscribe. Please do share this podcast episode. Please do subscribe to the Device Talks podcast network channel. You'll get this episode, this podcast. You'll get our Intuitive Talks podcast, our Stryker Talks podcast. And of course, you can also subscribe to Medtronic Talks on its own podcast channel. And you can find them all on devicetalks.com and all of them on all major podcast applications. You also, please do register for our upcoming Device Talks meetings. We'll have Device Talks Boston, May 10th and 11th, Device Talks Minnesota, June 6th and 7th, and use the code DTW for Device Talks Weekly, DTW25 to save 25% off the registration price.
You got to be there or be square.
Absolutely. Chris Newmarker and I will both be there and be square. So we are pulling off the impossible. We are going to do both at once. Yes.
There we go.
And tune in on Tuesday at 4 p.m. We'll have a great Device Talks Tuesday put together by Silicon Lab. So that's a lot going on. Chris Newmarker, have a great weekend. Great to see you, man.
Hey, great to see you too, man. Take care. Take care, everybody. Talk to you soon.